Hey, it's Pete. Welcome back to another episode of Benefits Blueprint. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're sitting down with Melissa and David. David's on the board of Gabriel's Angels, and Melissa is the CEO of Gabriel's Angels. They do a lot of work in our community with the mental health of our children. They're a very important charity partner of ours and dear to our heart. So let's listen to our conversations and have a great day.
In fact, I pulled an article. I've been reading a lot of articles that I pull off of, I think it's weekly, it may not be that often, but it's called the Human Animal Bond Research Institute. And they'll put out a lot of articles around the whole idea of how pets in our lives. And so one of the articles was about seniors really trying to show why seniors, because there's a loneliness factor, a social factor, and why they should have a pet. But one of them I pulled off was about Simone Biles and her 2 French bulldogs.
Okay.
And of course, as we know, she had mental health issues and stepped away for a while, but they do kind of like an interview.
For it.
I know.
Right.
And she talks about her 2 French bulldogs and how they bring so much joy in her
I'd
life,
love to hear
and
that,
how they, I mean, I'm not going to probably bring that in there, but I find it was interesting that when you perform
it ties to your mission, though, because your whole mission is it's on children,
clearly. Yeah.
And so we'll tie that in.
Yeah,
from,
if we want.
what are you learning
and I have
from how
others out there.
Well, and how does this impact your kids? Like what growth are you seeing with the kids in the mental health and emotional wellness?
And I have a particular story that I'll share about. You might have heard it, but it's one that Kara actually observed herself up way in North Phoenix. It's a home where kids really have to be pulled out of their home for quite some time because they're struggling with whatever it is, cutting, addiction, not necessarily addiction, but the behavioral health kind of things that you start to see that creep into eventually, you know, maybe needing to be put somewhere else. And so that story about what she witnessed when one of our teams was up there.
Well, what is the story?
Oh, you want to know the story? Oh, okay.
Tell it.
And I'm telling it, obviously this is from a third person, but it's so clear that it shows how our work really can affect kids and how this unconditional love of a dog can really make a difference in a moment when a child has gone through trauma, is facing trauma. But basically these are teens, so they're anywhere from 12 to 17. And the girls, it was a group of them that came into the room with the dog, and the dog's the cutest dog in the world. It's some doodle of some kind. And so she kind of sat in the back area, and the other group of kids were engaging with the dog, and they were in a circle. And one of the things that the therapy team, Julie, and her dog wanted to be able to do is show how the kids can interact with the dog and throw the ball, and he likes to play catch and bring the ball back. And of course this teen is sitting in the back against the wall and not engaging, not wanting to participate. And that dog knew something was going on, that instead of taking the ball back to the group or to the person that threw it, it went over to her at the back and dropped the ball. And it took her a moment, but she grabbed the ball and then she threw it. And then it became this interaction that's what's so telling is they know and they understand people are going through it.
Goosebumps.
I know, isn't it? It's the story I remember.
I mean, that's just the dog's intuition.
Yes,
you're not
and
trained for this, right?
You do not train for this, and it is. I mean, if you know anything about, and I say dogs, you know, we're a pet therapy organization, and although we would love to have many pets involved, and we do have one cat, we are pretty much dogs.
Mostly dogs, yeah.
And dogs have a special connection. I think dogs can really make people feel. I mean, we all have them. That little cat, Parker, I think is his name. I haven't heard much of what he's been doing lately, but probably
he's been directing traffic behind the scenes.
That's right.
He's holding court somewhere. You know he's holding court somewhere.
Right. He's like, I don't have to deal with these dogs. I will do. So it's just this whole idea that they feel what we may not be saying, and you probably both have seen it in your own lives with your own dogs. I mean, I know there are times when my dogs feel, I was sick, and this is really interesting. earlier this week. It was kind of going on through the weekend. I was having some kind of bug. Stayed home on Monday, and my dog that I'm training to be a therapy dog, Leo, he's 9 months old. He came up and just sat on the couch. All he wanted to do is snuggle, and he would keep just getting on top of me, more on top of me. But obviously, it was because he knew that I just wasn't feeling good, and I had the blanket over me and stuff. But they just get it, and they know. I have a personal story about that too. I can share with my own son that really makes me feel this work is so important, and it's one way that we can break through with kids is having a dog present, because sometimes that's what they're going to connect with and a human isn't, right?
Right.
So
that's why I love the ABC reading program.
Yeah.
Do you familiar? It's taking kids that aren't comfortable reading or further behind in their reading comprehenders, reading skills. Yeah. And just the fact that a dog is present makes them feel comfortable enough to open up and read out loud. Yeah. And it's like night and day, literally.
The reason that happens, and there's a lot of research out there about the reading about the reading and the dogs.
You don't set up.
About reading and reading to dogs can make a difference to a kid who's struggling. Again, it goes back to, you think about it, you're in a big classroom, you're already worried and scared about not feeling like you have confidence to do this. You don't want to say it amongst your classmates. Your teacher may not be as encouraging, or if they are, you just don't have that comfort level. So we pull these kids off into a room one-on-one with that therapy team. So it is a human that is helping them to connect, but they use the dog, and the way the language they use it is, they'll say, for example, Lisa and Scout's one of our therapy teams that does the reading program. They've been doing it for a long time. They'll say, Scout didn't quite hear you. Could you share it a little bit more with Scout? Or would you whisper into Scout's ear and, share more? And they'll connect with the dog, and they wouldn't do that normally in other situations. So they start really opening up because they're like, oh, the dog wants to hear me, and I'm going to talk to the dog. And sometimes they even forget the human is in the, so it does. We've seen such a difference in kids' motivation and confidence. We're not here to fix their literacy. We know that can be a byproduct, but they have to have some real coaching and focus.
And that confidence.
And the confidence around.
Do you think that works with adults? Because
we're
going to do some mock presentations here. And
maybe we could bring a dog over. Actually, what are you doing presentations on?
Just training.
Sales training.
Oh, okay.
Presenting.
Yeah. If you want a dog, bring your dogs in the room.
You told me point blank my dogs were not qualified.
I didn't say point blank. I don't know if they were in the right environment.
Something about too much jumping and biting.
Yeah.
we had to curb the biting. That might not help the mental wellness of the children you're serving the dog. Well, it's not biting, it's nibbling.
Okay.
It's of love.
Yeah, but you never know where a kid is coming from, and maybe that nibble doesn't feel quite right.
Yes.
You'd rather have a nuzzle than a nibble.
So I had a dog, Lucky, pit bull,
and
he helped 2 people overcome their fear of dogs.
Oh, isn't that
because one guy was attacked by a pit bull when he was younger.
Yes.
And it was a process, so it's amazing. I saw it firsthand in college how it's just a process of making them feel comfortable and the dog lays on the lap and they're just so nervous. They're just like, this is great.
So I have a funny story about that. You may want to edit this. But so I have an almost 19-year-old daughter next week. And she is just starting to really she never really in high school dated, always thought boys were cute, but really now is in that phase. Mm-hmm. And there is this one boy that she's been talking to, and she just said to me, hey, I'm going to bring him home it was a Sunday night. Yeah. We're going to hang out. We're going to watch a movie and stuff. She goes, but we have 6 dogs. She goes, you have to have all the dogs put away because he's been bitten and he is deathly afraid of dogs. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my gosh. So he came into the door. Everybody kind of comes through our garage. This way we have people out here. Comes through the garage and I kind of said a quick hi, but I have 2 of the dogs in these playpen kind of crates, but they're really sturdy. Mm-hmm. They weren't barking. They actually did really well, but I don't even think he wanted to look at them. So he didn't even really look my way. And then they kind of beelined it. They went back to her room. And as I was talking to her the next day, I was like, you don't probably really want to date someone that is deathly afraid of dogs, because when she moves out, she's got one of those dogs that's going with her, and it's probably she is, because she asks us for it. It's probably, it's a dachshund
I'll take
that
care
is.
of it, Mom.
It is her dog. It's her dog. Although she doesn't pay much attention to it because she likes the boys better. But she will move out and take the dog. But I said, you can't date anyone that doesn't like dogs, because this is what you're about. You love dogs. And she was like, he just needs to warm up. I'm like, you're going to keep bringing him back into the house and slowly introduce him? He probably needs to meet mine, who will be a therapy dog, probably in the next 6 months, and maybe that's the way we start to introduce people to the idea that it's okay. But even the pit, that's a great, story about the pit bull. Yeah.
But let's take a step back and first, can we hear about how you got involved with Gabriel's Angels and maybe how others can get involved? We can kind of start there.
So Gabriel's Angels has been around for 25 years now. Started in 2000. Yeah, it's a big celebration for us. I mean, 25 years for a nonprofit is really a big deal. And so 25 years ago, the founder, who had this dog, Gabe, and why Gabriel's Angels, really just on her own time, as she was volunteering with kids who face trauma, really kind of saw how much this dog that she thought she was just bringing down to socialize because it needed to be socialized, how it was making a difference in these kids that were really facing some challenges, child abuse, neglect, really hard trauma. And so she had kind of looked around and saw that there wasn't anything really fitting that need of those kids that were in that space of childhood abuse, neglect, trauma, and all of that leads right to our mental health. If you're not taking care of that can lead to mental health. So anyway, she left the organization in 2020. I've been in nonprofit my entire career. In fact, yesterday I was reflecting. It's been 30 years, which is hard to say that 30 years I've been doing this.
You started when you were 12. So
yes, that's what I say. I don't look it, do I? But 30 years ago, I was in a nonprofit, and we were, interesting enough, and I say this, everybody, it was serving at-risk kids, but through another way, kids who were really not getting access to things that us as kids maybe growing up had access to, like the arts, special sport camps, whatever it is. So this nonprofit I worked for was actually an extension of a development company, a real estate development company. He started this nonprofit that wanted to give kids that access. So we raised money to ensure they could get in the museums and do the sports camps and all of that. So that was my first job in nonprofit. And then I started to go into more animal welfare because I love animals. And that points back way to my childhood of walking. I grew up in Colorado and walking the plains and the fields of Aurora, Colorado, when nothing was really built up there, and would pick up horny toads. I'd bring back snakes. We had chickens, we had rabbits, and this was all, we lived in a suburban neighborhood. But anyway, I loved animals, and so I would just bring them all home, and my mom sometimes didn't appreciate it. But so I always loved animals, and so I started to work in organizations, nonprofits that did that. And my last nonprofit I was in prior to coming to Gabriel's Angels was a local, the Arizona Animal Welfare League. And I had been thinking in my career that I wanted to kind of step into this leadership role, leading an organization. And so a couple of community members that I've gotten to know out in the community when this job got posted, once the founder left, said to me and emailed me and said, "Oh my gosh, this job has your name written all over it." And I really do feel it is the perfect blend of, my own life and upbringing, my career. Fast forward, and I can share that at some point here, but once I got into the job, not realizing how close it hit home with my own children and a son who's battling his own mental health and stuff. So anyway, I was like, geez, this really, that's where you believe in things happen for a reason. And so I got the job, been here for 4 years. And what we do is we really, our small staff of, there's 8 of us. One is in Tucson supporting programs down there, but we're here to support volunteers who want to give their time with their pet, that their pet is able to, first of all, love children, but is able to be in a setting where children are really going through hard things and can handle that and help support that. So we look for volunteers all the time who they go off and get their dog trained and get their dog certified. We share with them how to do that and try to go along the journey to make sure we can connect them to those organizations. But then they end up coming to us and we place them in various programs, as we talked about the ABC program, and we have a group program where we're really teaching kids core behaviors that they need to become a healthy adult. They need to know about self-regulation, respect, teamwork, all the things that make you a good human adult that can be productive, in society and functioning.
Exactly.
So we've got to be there in the beginning with these kids, because if nobody's there, connecting with them and finding a way to help them overcome that trauma, then that's going to live with them and it turns into mental health, right?
So I'm curious, Melissa, because I'm also with the Boys and Girls Club, and there was an uptick in suicidal thoughts amongst teens right during and after the pandemic.
Yeah.
You started in 2021.
2021. Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen a shift in the last 4 years?
Yeah. So I noticed it personally because I had kids going through it. They were both in high school at the time. And so I noticed that personally. And then you read all the data and see the information that comes out about how kids are doing. And it was, the U.S. Surgeon General said it was an epidemic.
Wasn't it 70% increase in suicidal thoughts?
I don't have the exact numbers, but it was high. And we remain as, in fact, I was doing some other research and I was thinking about mental health and kids and stuff. And so Arizona, every year the Kids Count data comes out that ranks child well-being, and it looks at different factors like kids that are how they perform in school, how they're getting access to health care, all these things that make them a healthy, well child. And if those things come back collectively, a state is ranked based on that. And this year, we're 44th.
Okay.
I know. Yeah. Then I looked at the mental health numbers, and we're 50. Yeah, so kind of going to your data, I don't have the exact numbers.
States.
Arizona, unfortunately, and it's just really a challenge here.
There's still only 50 states?
There's
we're not last.
Actually, Nevada was last. 51.
State.
There was. It was actually.
Canada.
I don't know who they. It must have been. I don't know who they counted. I don't know who they counted in this as the 51. I don't know if
Puerto Rico?
Probably, because 51 was Nevada. We were not the last. So I did look at that because I was like, are we really the last? And they had Nevada. So anyway, little tidbit fact for you. But it is such a challenge for kids. I do see that the more we're coming out of the pandemic now not quite 5 years, because 2021, I think we're still in it. But I do see that the more you can get kids connected socially, the better we're going to see those rates change. The new data for Kids Count that I was talking about, where we're 44, it's going to come out here in mid-June. I hope we see that number go up, right? Up, down, whatever way you want to say it, but I hope we're higher and there's an improvement. We were the year before 42, but then something happened. But you know what's interesting? I keep looking at the one that talks about, I think it's youth and health, and more kids have died by suicide. And that's what put us down. And that number I'm not seeing on an upward. They'll put whether it goes up, whether it goes down, or whether it stays the same. And I'm seeing that not changing. So until I start seeing that change, hopefully then we'll see our number change. But yeah.
I don't even know where to go from that.
It's big, heavy stuff.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You have, I don't know, one of the crass things I thought about. I was like, well, you have a lot of opportunity out
Right.
I
mean, in some way, well, this is actually what you just brought up is a really great, when you talk about Gabriel's Angels, we have evolved. So when we originally started, we were in crisis shelters, homeless shelters, Boys and Girls Club. We're still in those, but the way they've done their work has changed, and the more support they're putting around that work and with the kids they have in the moment is changing. But schools, because we started the reading program back in 2016, schools started to call on us more, and then they wanted us to come in and do not just reading but the other programs, because as we also all know, not every school can get a school counselor. There is a real lack of that for the school system. So they have said more times than not that having us in the schools, particularly in times like these where schools are making tough decisions on closing and how they use their funding, we offer our services for free. So to be able to come in and support that school in a way we can is good for both the students and the administrators. I mean, all of the staff love that. But we are now more in schools. And when you talk about opportunity, what we've seen a trend of, good or bad, is now school districts are looking at it. It's not, before it used to be, an individual school, and then that school within the district would hear, you guys have that program? Who's the contact? I'd love to have it in ours. Now the school, at the school district level, administration are saying, we want that program. We're going to sign a district-wide partnership agreement, and we want, if whatever school needs that program, then they can have it. And we have more schools and school districts on the waiting list than we can fulfill with teams.
Really?
We have about 40 right now that just don't even have a team. And we can't.
So is this a call to action? Do you need volunteer teams?
Yes. Always a call to action.
Yeah.
We need teams, community people, and these are people who already, you're the kind of folks that you love to go down to serve meals to the homeless through your church, or you also go and help out at the food pantry. Whatever that is, if you're already doing that, or maybe you haven't thought about doing that, but you have this amazing dog that you go, I spend all my weekend with it, why not do it with your dog? And then you get some also benefit out of being a volunteer. So,
Well, and can you just spend a minute on just the impact that they're seeing? Like, what are some of your volunteers telling you that they're experiencing? Like, wow, I wish you had done this 10 years ago because of the impact. Like, what kind of stories do you have around that?
Many of our volunteers will be really humble and say, it's not me, it's my dog. But you have to have someone that, because the dog's not talking, when we get to that day, maybe we won't need the person, but and maybe we can have more dogs because we just have to get the dogs. But that's coming. Maybe it is. Maybe that's what I should focus on, is
Scooby-Doo or something.
developing the AI dog.
Yeah, Junior's on it.
There you go. They've got this robot almost ready to go. Right. So anyway, the person will say to us every single time that to be in a room with a child and see them when they maybe came in whispering or didn't want to talk or really didn't know how to feel, can start to feel now, because the other thing about our program is we're consistent. So consistency, as we all know in someone's life, is also important. So the fact that on any of our programs, someone comes in almost on a weekly basis for a period of time with that child, they really get connected to those children, and they also start to see how that child evolves. The hardest thing, I think, for those volunteers is we only do our programs there's so many kids that need our support that we do it by semester. So to see that evolvement over the years is the hardest thing for us, because we usually don't have a kid, just once in a semester. But the volunteers are seeing, like I said, kids not being able to express their feelings, or being able to, read. Teamwork, thinking about a shy kid who, isn't very kind of socially awkward, or obviously having some behavioral health issues. hard for them to connect with someone else. But when they're together all working on one activity, and you, I think, observed
I was
that
gonna hit on that next.
opportunity. Is when you see them come together, they're now connecting with each other and they're laughing and they're having fun. I mean, that's just already halfway to making a child feel like, oh my gosh, I have, hope and I can thrive and I can learn a little bit about what it means to, work with others and not feel so socially isolated.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was going to hit on that. So I got an opportunity to sit with Melissa, visit a school, David Crockett Elementary School.
Yep.
And it was the mindfulness program, right, which is pretty new. And so it was all about self-regulation and right, kind of self-regulating your emotions.
Yep.
And forgive me, but it was the
roller coaster breathing
right?
exercise. Yes.
Inhale, exhale, and I caught myself following along, right? Because just like, this helps.
I've used it, actually.
And it was so cool to see the kids come in and run straight to the dog. And they just sat down down, crisscross legs.
Yep.
And they're just ready to learn. Meanwhile, I'm in the back next to the other classroom, and Melissa and I were joking because it was just
loud.
an uproar.
Yeah.
Really?
And no dog in that room, right? So you could kind of see the difference of a typical classroom versus the work that you guys are doing.
The focus work with having these kids sit down and go through. And if I don't know if you have another question to that or comment, but you hit on a point where we also try things to try to see how do we enhance our programming. And we were lucky we had a big family foundation in town, and then another healthcare organization help support us. We only do our work through collaboration, right? We don't go out and serve kids individually or find where those kids are. We work with the schools, we work with the nonprofits. And what we know and learn is there's so many of these nonprofits out there that are all working with the same kids, but doing it in a different way, right? So we may have the tool of a dog. There's someone else who has arts, because arts can make a difference in opening a kid, right? Music, all of that. And so there's this one organization in town that I've got to know their founder that's called Mindfulness First. And I say, gosh, we should really do something together, because what you guys are teaching, and it is about a lot self-regulation, getting kids focused and being able to calm down and not hold in whatever's going on. Because if that doesn't happen when they show up to school, they're not learning that day. I mean, they're not, in their mind to do it. And so as I was thinking about what they try to do and how they try to teach these kids to be able to be mindful, I thought, wow, what if a dog is layered on top of it? And then I happened to one day be Googling and saying, oh, dog therapy and mindfulness. And a study came up. It was a lady going after a PhD in Ohio, I think, and she had put it out there where it was published, small study, but that was the whole point, is in a high school there were some mindful programs going on, and they wanted to layer the therapy dog on top, and the difference they saw doing both those programs. So we went to the foundation and we created this program called Calm Companions, and we found through looking at each of our curriculums that a lot of that could be integrated to be able to deliver that program you talked about. So we can still be in there with the dog. We can still be talking about teamwork, self-regulation, and then we can bring in those mindfulness techniques and really teaching kids. I mean, this Mindfulness First, it isn't just we sit and we breathe in and breathe out or do all kinds of those exercises. It's part of it, but it's also, how does your brain react? What is your brain doing? And they do it in a fun way so that kids understand why they may be in this situation they're in and why their brain is functioning the way it is. So that's been really successful. We're actually having conversations about how do we continue it, knowing that, for both of us, we've got our big, heavy work to do, and how to do that with everything when we don't have all the volunteers we need. But we think there are some opportunities just layer in the work. Like, we're going to borrow, actually, I was talking to our Chief Program Officer, Kara. They do a mindful moment, they call it, where in the beginning they do something that they call a mindful moment, and then they do a mindful close. We're going to call it a mindful pause, PAWS.
Yeah.
So we're already from that we learned, let's integrate that whenever we do our
Yeah.
work out there for
Yeah.
that program. And then what we may do is just come in to whatever their program is when they're talking about like self-regulation. We know that the dog can make a difference there. So when
Yeah.
do we bring the dogs in?
Deploy the dog. I like that.
Yeah. So anyway.
So we talked
Always.
about kind of the volunteers aspect of like their experience, but being around 25 years, do you have any conversations with kids that are now 30 that have been?
That's a really good question. So as an so I stepped in 21. We've been doing a lot of work to rebuild our programs and really rethink them, because coming out of the pandemic, what we did wasn't what we needed to do. So I had to basically rehire staff, talented staff who could help us rethink our programs, and we've done that. And over the last couple of years, we've been really focused on getting the right programs to the kids. And then we just went through a whole exercise with all of the staff, and then we had some consultants help us narrow down how do we measure that impact and how do we really report out on it.
Yeah.
And one of the things they asked us is just throw out whatever you want. Like, what would you love to know? How would you love to get the data? And many of us said, it's nice to have a point in time, a pre and post from, just that moment they spend with them. But to be able to get stuff that could follow 3-4 years down the road. And it's hard for us because we're not the service delivery, right? It's not like Boys and Girls Club where they're coming to them and they may stay there for years.
Right.
So we're working on that because we believe that's our next stage, is how do we begin to show what a difference could make longer term. And even if we just start with a kid that maybe we're doing the program in 4th grade and they're there till 6th grade, how do we get data, because the school we're working with. So we've got to just work through all those, but that's the plan, is to tap into the kind of the longer term effects of this. Yeah.
And so then when you're saying that you have 40 schools on a wait list, so you're staffing them in with your volunteers. So how many volunteers does that take to run a school? I mean, is that 30? Is it 80? Is it 120?
No. So we have, we've got about 115 therapy teams. That's what we call the dog and the person. You are alone. So depending on what school we go into, if they want the ABC program and the group Pause for Resilience program, there may be 2 teams in that school.
Okay.
Some schools only have one of the programs, and this is where the challenge becomes, is we may have a team and they're doing a program. They can only take 8 to 10 kids at a time if it's the group. The school probably has 20 kids identified, so then the next semester we've got to take the next 8 to 10 kids. And at the same time, we have a whole other school over here that we haven't even found a volunteer for. So we always like to try to get at least one volunteer in the school doing each of the programs. And usually a volunteer only does one. We have a few that do both, which we are really grateful for those that want to give more time. But those 40 schools are places where they don't have a placement yet. Or the other thing that happens, as we all know, the biggest challenge in our work is dogs don't live as long as people, and we wish, they could be around for longer. But because of that, there is some attrition that we always have to build in because they're just, for whatever reason, there could be anything, and it's not always just the dog's old age, or sometimes, and that's important, we've got to advocate for the dogs. The volunteers have to advocate for their dogs, because sometimes dogs, like anything, if you were a therapist, sometimes you may not just want to be that all the time. So they can only go in, there are some rules around it. They can only go in for 2 hours at a time. To get that qualification certification through these national agencies that do that certify these dogs, there's some real rules around it, because we also don't want this to be a bad experience for the dogs. So so there's all of that. You got to take into account the dog and the person and the those that want to go away for the summer, and how do we keep the programs going.
How do you start So you're going to have folks listening to this, and
Yeah.
they're going to be interested because clearly you're making an impact for the mental
Yes.
health of kids.
Absolutely. And we need to continue to make the impact.
Right.
And I believe pets can do that as that tool.
How
But
does
how,
someone start?
yep, how does someone start? First, I would just say is if you're considering this and don't have a dog, think about the characteristics you would need for a dog like this. And that is, more often than not, you can find it in any kind, whether it's a rescue dog, and a dog that you have purchased, whatever that is, we don't care.
Sure,
But
conference. Sorry.
What'd you say?
At a conference.
Right, whatever.
Dog.
The key, though, is whether you get it as a puppy or it's already 2-3 years of age, it's got to be a dog that enjoys being out with people.
Yeah.
And particularly in our case, they have to love kids. Yeah. And if they love kids, then they're already probably, if they need a little training, great, fine. You may need to get that. But I always tell people a dog that is going to come into our program needs to know, they need to also be a very, canine good citizen is a term in the dog world where a dog can get a certification to be a canine good citizen. And basically what that says is you can listen, and just like a kid and your child, you're growing up, you can listen, you can sit, you can stay, you can come when you're called, you know.
Yeah.
So they have to be able to have some of those basic
commands,
manners
yeah.
and not jumpy, not,
Why
licking
would
everyone's
you
face. Not jumpy, biting, no, nibbly. So what I would say is that's the first thing. If you haven't gotten a dog, look for that in a dog and really spend the time to get the dog. Like I personally have a dog so I've always had dogs. At one point we've had 4, we have 6 now, as I mentioned. I have always had the mindset that one of them I want to be a therapy dog. Now some of them that we already had are getting too old and way advanced. They might have been okay, but I wanted to really start from the beginning. And so I made it a point when I got my puppy, I just went to PetSmart and, they offer deals sometimes. It got through every single program. In fact, last night we graduated our 3rd program, the advanced program. So he's a graduate too in this May. He's 9 months old, and they can't be a therapy dog until they're a year. So that's another important point is if they go and get evaluated, they have to be a year old. But
except for maturity purposes.
yes, which is really 7 years old. So they're already 7.
Got
yeah.
it.
But what I would also say is if you have that dog or you're thinking about it because you have a dog, I always tell people go and listen to one of our information sessions. Right now we do them live once a month on the 4th Tuesday, and you can find out all of this information on the gabrielsangels.org website where it goes, I want to volunteer or I want to help. Mm-hmm. There's a link where we always go 2 months in advance and you can sign up. They're always from 6 to 7 at night. It's virtual. We're not asking you to come anywhere, so you can sit in your home with your dog, and you're going to hear from not only our staff about who we are, what we do, what it'll take for you to become a part of our pack. And then we usually have a team that has already been doing it, so you get the opportunity to interact with them and hear how they are doing the work. And then we usually have, because these dogs have to get evaluated by either Pet Partners or Alliance of Therapy Dogs is what we take. They're 2 nationally known organizations. We usually have an evaluator from one of those programs on that call so that if people have specific questions about their dogs. So I always say start there is the easiest way to, say, okay, now what? Because then you're going to get into our system where there's going to be follow-up, and you're going to have one of our staff reach out to say, what do you think? Is your timing right? How can I help you? And so we're trying to support them.
Gotcha.
What's the life cycle of them starting? Like from saying I'm interested to actually staffing in somewhere, volunteering in somewhere?
So I ask this question a lot. We don't have the exact data, but what we say is it likely could be based on a couple of things. Not a surprise that pet therapy is growing. It is becoming more known as a tool for counselors, psychiatrists, school staff, volunteers who are doing programs like ours to bring an animal into their work. And so these evaluators who are also volunteers for these agencies are becoming far and few between. And so to get on their schedule sometimes can be 3 to 4 months. So there's that wait time that we can't do anything about. And then there's also the, okay, what stage is your own animal at and what might you need to do to get it. So we usually say 6 to 9 months if you're kind of moving along in the process. But it all depends. Is your dog over a year? Yeah. So, but about that, and it could be sooner. We've had some people that sat on and literally was like, my dog's perfect and it's ready, and we hook them up with the evaluator. Now that can take some time, as I mentioned, but as soon as that happens, they're in the program starting within 3 months or less.
They go out with somebody. I mean, you're training them as a volunteer, clearly.
Yes. So once they get right. No, great.
School down there.
Yes.
Address somewhere.
Yeah. In fact, that's a really good point. I was reminded because you could go to these agencies, get certified. There are many people out there that we don't even know of that are out there certified that will knock on a library store. They'll knock on the school and say, "Can I just bring my dog in for a month?" Right. But I think what's important here that distinguishes that from what we do and why having staff and why asking the community to support this program is because we do programming with the kids, and it's a set curriculum and a set way that we want them to help support the kids, and we're there alongside supporting that. So to your question is we have a whole onboarding process. We want to meet their dog at the time. We talk to them about what are the things they enjoy doing themselves. What do they think? Some dogs aren't going to be great in a group full of 8 to 10 kids. Some are better one-on-one. So depending on that, then we turn around and give them options of where they could go. They choose, and then we're there. We're always at the first visit, helping support that. And then along the way, we're checking in, and then we have celebrations at the end where we celebrate the youth going through this. And so they're always there cheering on the volunteer and supporting them with whatever they need to make sure that celebration happens.
That's great. And one more question on the need for volunteers. I believe you had said, and I don't think it was during this conversation, but you're assigning teams based on location or the preference of the volunteer, correct? So that they're not driving 30, 40 miles. Is that part of the reason why there's such a big need right now?
Yeah,
and
great
are those
point.
School districts that are looking for teams, are they in a specific location that's hard to find those volunteers?
No, that's a really great point, and that is something that I saw when I first came in. We were really appealing to the volunteer and saying, or we'd say, we want to get you really close to where you are, and then they would be like, great, I only want to be 20 minutes from my home, and they live in North Scottsdale. Well, we serve Title I schools and crisis
They're
shelters.
not in North Scottsdale.
Sorry, that's not going to happen. And we would then try to figure it out and then go, Cave Creek, they've got one. Let's grab that Title I. And then we'd put 5 teams there. And so I started to say, we got to spread the wealth. And we've got to show people that if this is something they want to do, there's value to driving 30 minutes. And so to your point, one of the things we're, as an organization in 25 years, going through rebranding, updating our website, all of that's going to be kicking off here in early 2026. But my dream and my hope, and I think it can happen, is we need to show the need visually. So now, to your question, you said, well, how does someone get involved? What do they do? There's not an easy way. We have to tell someone, well, go on our link and then sit on the info session. I want to be able to more interactively through our website show those opportunities. And so how do we visually show a map of where the need is that maybe someone goes, oh my gosh, I can go there. That's not that bad. I mean, we try to.
They might be going to that area.
It's on my way to work.
Right. And if it's only once a week or once every other week, and some, they're just, they want to do this, but they really only want to do it within 20 minutes. And we try to, but we're getting better at saying, like I said, we give them 3 options. We don't always meet. I mean, we're not going to send someone that's over in Surprise down to, Chandler.
Right.
But we will try to figure. Yeah, that may be the next thing we'll have to do. There's a lot of things we're talking about. How do we, to your point, how do we make this more doable and someone feeling like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. And I feel like I said before, I mean, if you love your dog anyway and you're out hiking with it and that dog is with you everywhere, it's right in the car down to Starbucks, why wouldn't you want to volunteer and do it with a dog? I mean, we're one of the few opportunities you get to do that.
Right. Yeah.
With. So.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I was thinking of Gen Z as a target, right? Because they're even looking for housing that's like they're taking the dogs into consideration more, from housing to everything, right? And they're also very big proponents of mental health.
Yes.
So is there a plan to kind of look for
Ooh,
those
that's a good
younger?
question. You are on the board. That
I
would be
know.
great. No, you could help with the plan. Absolutely.
That is an idea, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Volunteer yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
This is what we need. Actually, I would, to your point, and this may be a call out to whoever, may find this and want to listen to how to be involved, is we at one point did have a young professionals
Yep.
group, and it, went away along with COVID, and trying to get that group back, we had to focus first on rebuilding a board and
Yep.
getting a board, but we're also seeing on our board a lot more younger people, and so I would love some energy from that, of some people who really want to help us
Right.
get out there and start potentially rebuilding it, because that's a great task for that group, I think, and they're already committed. I think it was not just you said Gen Z, and then I think millennials,
Yeah,
they're
I'm a
showing some
millennial,
data
yeah.
around, they're one of the, so pet ownership is growing,
Right.
not a surprise, and it's a high rate, and millennials are the ones where it's growing the most in.
Got it. Yeah, I can see that.
So
Yeah.
tapping the millennials to really use their dog, and they want to be involved, right? You want to be involved.
Yes, I am
I'm not a
involved.
millennial.
Yes.
After I did start 12. Maybe I am, because I started when I was 12. That's right. That still wouldn't make me a millennial.
Can't force that one.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of encapsulating everything I'm hearing. So you have a team of 8.
Team of 8 staff.
And you're managing a team of 120.
Actually, those are just the therapy teams. We then have, which actually, I should have said this, we have a helping
the helping
hand.
hands, yeah.
I always forget that, and I'm remiss for that, but when we do these group programs, and you have and you're not doing this one-on-one, right? You're doing it with 8 kids, and you have your dog to have to manage, you have to manage the curriculum we give you and the programming you have to do. We really want someone alongside, and this usually is someone who their dog isn't ready yet, or they don't quite have the dog that,
But they want to be involved.
but they want to be involved. So we call them a helping hand. And so with all of them involved, we have about 145 volunteers, but about 115 are the actual therapy teams.
And you need about 300, it sounds like.
Oh.
Based upon the need.
Easy. And here's the deal. We reactively take those partnership calls because we already have a list. We don't go out and seek out. And one of the things, if we really wanted to say what the true need was, we could probably call every one of those school districts that haven't proactively reached out to us and say, hey, do you want to make sure that one of these programs is in your school? Okay, great. And the ones we're not in yet, we could be calling and saying, would you love a program like this? That number would more than double.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I know we've been talking about the mental health of the kids, but now I'd like to kind of turn that conversation over to your team.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
great.
have a team of 8 that are managing 140 different personalities.
That's busy.
Their dogs. So what do you do for their mental health? How do you're trained on delivering this for the children.
Yeah.
How do you do it internally for
Yep.
your own team?
So one of the things, it's a really great question. And it's interesting, when you're a small nonprofit, and I've worked my whole 30-year career now in the nonprofit space, and I've worked for huge, large organizations to small ones. And obviously, the larger ones are very resourced, so they make, I think, sometimes more of a point to say, oh, we're going to take a full day out team building and go do X, X, and X. And when I'm a small $1 million organization, I start thinking about, oh, how do I do that and it not go, directly to the program? But then you have to think about, you can't let your staff burn out and turn over because that's costly, right? And so you have to find ways to be able to do things, and even if it's the small things. So one of the things for us is, we were in a standalone building that just had big offices, and we don't do any of our programming within our walls. And so when I was rehiring the staff and rethinking how we work, we were starting to explore co-working spaces. And you both know, I was thankful that you helped us to find where we're at. We were already out there searching, and then this one came along, and I hear more often than not from the staff how thankful they are. Our work and how we work has changed because we're in 2 small offices where there's 4 to 5 people in each office. And so that has to show a different way of working. We're collaborating more, which I love. But we also have access to things like a small gym, yoga on Wednesdays. They give us snacks all the time. They have food trucks. All of those things are really helping our staff being able to say the swings. I mean, that's a small little thing, but the
staff... They're out there working all the time.
They are out there all the time. Sometimes I go, what are you doing? But no. But they love taking advantage of the space. In fact, I was just at a staff meeting before this, and we were talking a little bit about this burnout. I had gone to a thing earlier today that someone talked about real burnout in the nonprofit space, and how do you help set your culture up so that there isn't this feeling like we just got to work. Yeah. And the staff was just, one of the staff members was just saying that there's a meditation room also, or a room if you need to just take a little nap or whatever in that space. And she said, I don't do it often, but you know what? The other day I just took 10 minutes, and I loved hearing that she gives herself permission to do that. Yeah. And anything the staff wants to do. The other thing we do, and this goes to, we may not have a lot of money, but I want to invest part of that in staff. 3 to 4 times a year, we've assigned, because we have 8, we've assigned teams of 2. So we usually try to do 4, and they get to plan a half a day out. So whatever the activity is, that it always involves something food first or last, and then we go do something. And so we've done anything from, we've rented those donut boats down at Tempe Town Lake where you all sit in. We've done the game rooms. There's one up in
like the battle rooms.
The one in Scottsdale that's got a whole bunch of fun. By the way, if you ever want to do a team outing, Bam Kazam, I think it's called.
Okay.
It's really fun. Have you been? It's so fun. I didn't think I'd like it, but it's physical too. Not everything is just that brain, like those other rooms.
Like escape rooms.
Escape room. It's fun. We've done that. There's a place down in Mesa called the Game Show Room, which is fun. Yep. So we always try. I kind of tell them, here's where I'd like to stay within, but they find ways, and we always call and we'll say, we're a nonprofit. Can you do anything for us? And they do. Most often they'll give us something, a little discount. And so I encourage the staff to, and they love planning it and thinking about it. So that's one way that we help their mental health. The other way is, I want people to just get their work done, and however they have to do it, they do it. So we're not hard and fast on when they have to be in the office, other than Thursday. Thursday is usually the day we have our staff meeting, but also it's a chance for everybody to collaborate with everybody and be in person. So however they want to work. Sometimes if they say, I will probably work from home Tuesdays and Fridays, sometimes on a Wednesday they may go, you know what, I've got a lot of calls, and then I've got to do some writing. I'm just going to stay home. And so I don't really, matter how they want to work their day. But we also instituted, this was probably after my first year, what I was seeing is we do tend to be on a cycle of schools, although we still have the programs happening in those other nonprofit partner agencies that go all year round. We have very few volunteers that are here in town to be able to do them. So some of that is happening, but not at the level of the school season. So I basically was like, first of all, we don't get things done on Fridays. So in a way to kind of supplement how busy the school year can be and the events we do, I just said, let's have Fridays off in the summer.
I remember that one. Yeah.
So we do Friday. So starting not tomorrow, because that's right before Memorial Day, but we get out at 1 anyway. But after that, every Friday in the summer is going to be.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So flexible work schedule.
Very flexible.
Yeah, we met with Jarrett Ransom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the end.
Yes.
Right? And so she went down I won't say a rabbit hole, but she really shared some different ways that she's seen nonprofits kind of incorporate those perks, if you will, because like you said, I mean, small nonprofits just don't have the resources to do what, larger organizations
and we're doing. I mean, where nonprofit is so different than the for-profit space. We are a business. We need to act like a business, and we're not here to not make a profit. We're here to give it back to the programs. But because we're constantly thinking about how do we best serve these people, the gaps aren't being filled elsewhere. More people are this, or more are hurting because of the mental health issues or whatever, it feels like you're just always on, and you have to always make sure that, we're one step ahead of how do we do more of this? How do we help with this? And that can be really tough sometimes. Yeah. So we try to find other ways to support the staff. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. What else?
So I'm asking as a board member, yes.
Oh, gosh.
Where's Gabriel's Angels headed? What are you excited for in the future? I know you're kind of going through some rebranding. You had some plans done.
Yep.
What are you excited for in the future?
So many ideas.
It's the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, 25 years from now that we're, and a lot of there are some nonprofits out there. When I worked in the animal welfare space, we did say we'd love to close our doors one day because you don't want to know that there's an animal out there suffering or needs that kind of,
that's a good point, right?
Why wouldn't you want to think big and go close our doors? We don't have to keep going. Yeah. In this instance, there are some just nonprofits that trying to get rid of that need. What we're here to do is spread joy and to bring this unconditional love, this non-judgment being that people connect with, and so many enjoy being around, that it can really brighten your day and make you feel less anxious and less stressed. That, our goal is that how do we do that to continue to serve the needs of kids, but how do we address the challenges of not having enough volunteers, and are there other ways for us to serve or to think about how to serve the kids? I don't know the answers, and as a board that's we have a strategic vision that's a 10-year vision, and that is one of the kind of big things that we're going to probably start looking at maybe another 2 or 3 years down the road. We kind of talk about it now, and my dream would be to, be in a place where people do gather with their dogs anyway, naturally, and then together we partner. We're there, we're officing there. They have a place to go with their dogs, and then an opportunity to learn how to, do this. And is there some value to that somewhere? That would be really cool. And the other piece, I think, from a vision, this is something we've been thinking about lately a lot, is I think our program is unique. I do think out across the United States, and every once in a while, I will spend the Friday in a rabbit hole of what's out there, who's doing what therapy work, what are the organizations that one in New York that are they doing it different? Interest. Well, that would be the hope.
That's the goal.
The goal would be that there are organizations that do it already, and they do it very grassrootsy, which is how this started, right? Yeah. So there's a bunch of us that love our animals. We know we can get them registered. Now we want to go out and do something with them. The way that we may be able to help with the national piece is we now have this programming. We just did some work on how to measure that and the impact of it. But if we do that after a couple of years, we're even talking about maybe partnering with ASU, U of A, and doing some research. If we do some of that, how could we create this? It's already created, but this curriculum, could that become something that gets in the hands of all these? We're not doing it, but they get it, and there's a train the trainer kind of thing. Yeah. So that is something
like facilitators of Gabriel's Angels curriculum.
Yeah, exactly. Or whatever awesome. That name may be.
Right.
I don't know.
Uh-oh.
Maybe. Yeah, I know. Maybe we should actually. Well, I won't do it on camera or on. But after we turn off, tell me when you turn it off. Yeah. I would love your opinion on something.
All right.
So
cool.
I'll give you the inside teaser. Get your thoughts initially.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
You do have the ability of editing.
I know, but I don't have control of that.
I'm not risking it. Then Junior slips.
You'll have to hand it over to me.
Yeah, right.
So impossible tapes. And I would throw it back on you as a board member. What is your hope to see, knowing what you know now about our work?
I just want to get more, from the beginning, when I first interviewed, I would love, and I think Pete mentioned that I volunteered for it, but the young professionals. Kind of, because I'm on the same thing for the Boys and Girls Club,
right?
And it's just such a tremendous,
right?
uplift, like you're taking away, like, because now you can own something that's not on the board
Yeah.
and also not on the staff.
And
right?
it's
So
not, it's not that legal or fiduciary kind of heaviness of a
Exactly.
board.
It's just fun.
Yeah.
It's engaging
Yeah.
people. It's getting ambassadors
Yeah.
out there. It's just.
Well, let's do that.
Yeah, and
That
so
could be-
I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
And I think Junior would be the first one.
Yay.
After
Do you have
college. No, I'm
dogs?
just kidding.
You have dogs?
One dog, yeah.
One dog. Love your dog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a Shih Tzu.
Oh, they're the best. My parents had 2 of those. They're so cute.
But yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. Like I always think about not only kids, but I forgot the volunteer with Iggy. Ziggy, sorry.
Jim.
Ziggy.
Yeah.
Jim. So when he was talking about going to a hospital and just seeing, like you can literally see when someone's petting the dog, the heart rate goes down and the heart, their blood pressure goes down.
There is studies out there.
Just by
Yeah.
petting a dog, right?
Yeah.
And so I use that knowledge when I'm frustrated or have a long day, just go home and pet my dog for a few minutes, and I literally feel it.
Yeah.
And so
And that's really why we're here today as we talk about mental health awareness, to be able to have outlets that help reduce that anxiety and reduce
Yeah.
that stress. There is research out there about the release of that serotonin when you're, petting this dog, that just all they want from you is just, to be loved and makes you feel like you're you could be an important part of their life too.
yeah.
So
And so I'll just wrap it up with the Night of Possibilities.
Ah.
So we have our gala coming up
Yes.
in November.
November 15th at the iconic.
Coming up.
Yeah,
I tell you,
it's right there. People.
we're in the planning. I already feel like we're behind. By the way, I should have brought sponsorship information
I
today.
know, right?
But
looking
it
for
is November
sponsors,
15th.
yes.
It'll go fast. I can't believe we're already moving towards June. Saturday, November 15th at the iconic Arizona Biltmore. A Night of Possibilities is so fun because it's your gala where you typically see, you have the opportunity to, see if you win a raffle prize or can bid on a live auction, some really cool, interesting things. This year we think we have a Vespa, a street legal Vespa,
cool.
which is going to be an auction item from one of our teams.
Okay.
Her son owns an Italian motorcycle shop
okay,
down in
cool.
Mesa, actually.
Nice.
So,
Okay.
anyway, that's the fun of the evening. But all the not all, you won't see all 100 out there, 115, but many of the dog teams, because they love being out and connecting our audience with them, and people love them. In fact, I didn't bring it with me, but how great every dog gets a trading card, and it's like a baseball card. And when you think about kids who are getting those, and we've heard many stories
them.
of kids who have we not purposefully, but they were in a program, and then we find out they're in the school that they were in the crisis shelter program, and they're carrying the card, or we hear from someone who says, "Oh my gosh, we moved, and this has been the one thing that they've moved with."
Yeah.
So
That's
they
awesome.
love that.
Yeah. So we are looking for table sponsors. I know you don't
Yeah.
have the details now, but if anyone out there is interested, we're looking for table sponsorships.
Attend, buy a ticket, be a sponsor. Yep.
Yep.
Give a raffle gift if you can't be at the event, but you have some kind of business that you would love to participate and get a little recognition that way. We would love to have you be a part of that too.
Yeah.
So
Great.
thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for
It's
jumping
been
on.
enjoyable and heavy at the same time.
Yeah, but you have
Yeah.
heavy work to do. Yes.
Yeah, that's very true.